Going up on Tech News today, Intel and Motorola get with each other, Twitter messes with itself, and Microsoft gets pushy about subscriptions. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Tuesday, September 18th, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by Carbonite Online Backup. Automatic, continual, and unlimited backup for your computer files for only $59 a year. Try it free at Carbonite.com and use offer code TNT and get 2 bonus months with purchase. And by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your iPhone, iPad, MacBook, or Android smartphones. Find out what your gadget is worth and get cash to upgrade to the latest iPhone at Gazelle.com. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we keep you up to date on all the news in the tech world, at least the top 10 stories of the day at the beginning each day in the news feeds. Twitter CEO Nik Software got to go on NBC's Today Show to announce a new look for Twitter. At the same time, Twitter redesigned its iPad app, so the new look is both on the web and on the app. The new design simplifies the layout when looking at your feed and provides a more photo-centric design, especially for profile pages. Android users got a little update as well.
Motorola's multi-year, multi-device partnership with Intel is bearing fruit in the name of the RAZR I, a revamped Droid RAZR M. Here's what's different. New Intel Atom processor with a maximum clock speed of 2 gigahertz. It's a Medfield processor, so it supports hyper-threading, and Intel claims it holds up to the competition. RAZR I will be going for about 340 British pounds, SIM-free in the UK.
Stop the presses. Apple's head of design, Jonathan Ive, is working with another company. Ive will be designing a special limited edition version of a Leica M. How limited is this limited edition? Well, pretty darn limited. There's going to be 1 unit made, and that unit is going to be auctioned off for charity.
I thought you were going to say there's only going to be 1 unit made, and Johnny's keeping it. LG officially announced its new flagship phone, the Optimus G, at an event in South Korea. You'll get a 1.5 gigahertz quad-core Snapdragon S4 processor, 2 gigabytes of RAM, 32 gigabytes of storage, LTE, Android 4.0, and a 1280 by 768 4.7-inch IPS display. They also threw NFC and Bluetooth in there as well. It's just over 5 ounces at 0.33 inches thick, and Gadget reports that the unlocked version of the phone is selling for 999,000 won. That's about $893 US.
China's Alibaba Group has completed the initial repurchase of shares from Yahoo and restructured its relationship in a $7.6 billion deal. Alibaba VP John W. Spielik says that the company handled $12 billion in transactions over the past year and has a valuation of $40 billion. That's Alibaba. After taxes, the deal will net Yahoo around $4.5 billion, which is a healthy return on the $1 billion Jerry Yang put into Alibaba 7 years ago. But new CEO Marissa Mayer says she won't return that money to shareholders, so maybe we're about to see some hefty acquisitions soon.
A new exploit has been discovered in Internet Explorer 7, 8, and 9. The backdoor is called Poison Ivy, and according to security blogger Eric Romang, it is actively being exploited in the wild. It works by using Adobe Flash Player to conduct a heap spray to bypass address space layout randomization protection in Windows. Microsoft says it's aware of the issue and is investigating. IE 10 is not affected.
Microsoft also announced non-enterprise pricing for Microsoft Office 2013 today. Home users are being nudged toward subscribing to the software with 2 plans at $100 a year and $150 a year that include more apps than the standalone versions and perks like free SkyDrive storage, free Skype minutes, and multi-user, multi-device licenses. Non-subscription versions get a price rise at at $145, $220, and $400 for the different versions. And those standalone versions can only be installed once on one device. No home licenses for those anymore.
Question for you guys. Do you think it violates net neutrality for AT&T to require a specific wireless plan in order to make FaceTime calls over cellular?
Nah.
I don't know.
Well, if you did, you'd have friends, at least on this topic. pretty polarizing otherwise. In a notice today, Free Press, Public Knowledge, and the New America Foundation's Open Technology Institute all said they intended to file a complaint with the FCC. AT&T claims that the FCC's net neutrality rules don't regulate applications that come preloaded on devices. It's a war.
Yesterday, rumors spread that Samsung would announce the Samsung Galaxy S4 at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona in February and then make the phone available in March. But Samsung posted on Twitter that the rumor is not true and chided the media for spreading the rumors.
Want to get a Samsung Galaxy Tab 10.1 in the U.S.? Forget it. Judge Koh says that that's too bad. She upheld an injunction blocking the sales of the tablet. If you've been living under a rock, Apple is currently battling Samsung over patent infringement and asked for the injunction against Samsung to stop sales of the Tab 10.1.
All right, let's take a quick break. Thank our sponsor, Carbonite. Carbonite Online Backup is a way to go to keep yourself safe. You need to have a backup plan. You don't want one of these nasty viruses to come along and ruin your day and ruin all your data, too. I recommend that you have a backup that's local and a backup in the cloud. And Carbonite is perfect to be your backup in the cloud. Ask yourself this question right now. Are your computer files backed up? They can be. They can be backed up very quickly, automatically, and continually, and kept safely off-site, away from those crashes, away from disasters. Your files automatically and continually backed up in the cloud, stored off-site, and easy to restore if you need to pull them back. Plus, you can access your backed up files privately on any computer, on your smartphone or your iPad. So you get the bonus of being able to access your files in the cloud as well. Try this unlimited offer. You can get unlimited backup for your PC or Mac for only $59 a year, but you don't have to pay a thing to try it. Try it for free. Go to Carbonite.com, enter the offer code TNT, and you'll get 2 bonus months free if you decide to buy it with that offer code. Again, that's TNT. Be sure to sign up for the free trial from the homepage to get those 2 months free. No credit card required for that free trial either. So go do it now. Carbonite.com, offer code TNT. And we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Do it now. Go do it. All right. Let's talk about that Motorola phone. Joining us to talk about all the stories today, Mr. Tim Stevens, editor-in-chief of Engadget.com. Good to have you back, man.
Hey, thanks. Glad to be here. I'm very excited.
Did you dig into the RAZR I much? I mean, the line on this seems to be it's the Motorola RAZR M with an Intel processor inside.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. It's a version of this phone right here, which is the M, but with the Medfield processor, the 2 gigahertz version. So it's the quickest Medfield that we've yet seen. Matt Smith on our team was there and did some benchmarking, and overall, it seems to be slower than the RAZR M in terms of most benchmarks, but it is considerably quicker on the SunSputter benchmark, which is kind of it's a pretty good indication of how the thing is going to render web pages and handle JavaScript. So it remains to be seen just how the thing is going to perform overall compared to the RAZR M. And of course, we're wondering about battery life too. The RAZR M has got great battery life, and we're curious to see how the Medfield will stack up in that regard.
Well, maybe that's how they're getting good battery life. It's like, it's not as fast. It's 2 gigahertz. We're telling you it's 2 gigahertz, but it's not going to be as good as those other processors.
Well, it's a single core, but Intel says because we can do multi-threading and because we have the Smart Actions software on there, we can get 20-hour battery life. I'm not, we'll have to test that and see if that plays out. But 20 hours ought to be enough, right?
You'd think that, but the thing about this RAZR I is that it does not come with Chrome pre-installed because it's not optimized for Intel. Is that right? Yeah,
Intel said it will not ship with Chrome installed because Chrome's hardware acceleration does not yet work with the Medfield processor. But you can still download Chrome yourself and install it later.
Is this the kind
presumably not get the performance that they're seeing in these benchmarks now. So that remains to be seen, too, just how we'll optimize the operating system and the first-party apps will be for the Intel platform. But it is an interesting step to finally see an Intel chip on a kind of a mainstream device anyway. And we're definitely very excited to run it through its paces.
Isn't that going to confuse people, though? Like, this RAZR can run this thing natively, and this RAZR can't. I mean, it's RAZR I versus RAZR M, and you have to
probably part of the reason why they didn't just introduce this with their entire rest of the line of phones a few weeks back, right?
Well, no, the reason they did that is because Intel wanted to come out and tell their story separately from other stuff.
Right, because it's kind of a big deal for Intel to be doing this in the first place.
There have been other Intel phones from ZTE, Lenovo, Lava, Gigabyte, but this is the first big name to come out with an Intel phone, and this is an add-on processor that Intel wants to show off. It's interesting to me, too, that they're starting in the mid-range because it seems like they're taking baby steps. They want to see if they can get this to work, and then they say in 2013 they're going to come out with a bunch of other phones, and I would expect to see some high-end phones next year that have Intel inside.
I always like how they... Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
Go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say, I think that's probably because I think they're running a little bit behind. So maybe they were aiming higher, but it's taken them this long to get here. So now their specifications basically put them in the mid-range, not because they want to be there, but just because they're not really as high performance as they want it to be.
Okay, so here's the question, right? The RAZR M and the RAZR I, virtually the same in most respects. They look the same. They have the same edge-to-edge OLED display. Good-looking phone. Nice phone. 4.3-inch display. Here's the differences. You get an Intel processor inside, which Intel says that's going to mean better battery life, and that's going to mean better performance. You know, forget Chrome. You can install Chrome or not later on. You're going to have a browser, and maybe they'll get Chrome tweaked eventually and updated to work on that. But that's not the deciding point. The deciding point here is, do you believe the battery life, and are you going to be sucked in by these camera options? They say we've got an active shutter in here. We have better image processing, so you can take better photos. Sarah, if you're looking at this, has Intel done enough to sway people?
Well, you know what I was going to say a minute ago was you see more and more that companies will say this phone has a really good camera and such a fast shutter. You could take 10 pictures per second, at least in the case of the RAZR I. And I kind of go, I mean, maybe once in a while that's going to be helpful to me. I'm not shooting a lot of sports for my career, so yeah, okay. I guess it's a good way to explain that this phone is snappy. But I just don't feel like that's actually something that is helpful to a lot of folks.
It's opening the camera app that everybody notices, right? And they say it's less than a second.
Sure.
That's okay. That's okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good, but I also feel like this is definitely not the only phone that is going to give people the option to have a really snappy camera. So yeah, you've got one of many choices here.
Well, Motorola's got to differentiate this RAZR against the other ones as well. And if they're going to tout battery life, I think that's silly because they have the Max HD. I think that's what the HD Max, whatever they call it, the one with the larger battery. So if you're concerned about battery life, you go with that phone, not necessarily the Intel version, unless you want it slightly thinner or a smaller screen. I'm also like, for the camera app, they pressed the button in the little video demo, and immediately the camera app launched. And
and that's the difference between the M. It actually has a hardware button for taking photos.
The hardware button, it looked like it was super fast. And to say, okay, look, we have a glut of Android phones, not just Motorola's phones. There's everybody else's phones. To say this is one other standout feature, like you need something to differentiate it, because otherwise it's just another touchscreen phone that's running Android, and that's not enough anymore for people to go, oh yeah, I'm going to pick that one. You need some kind of hook.
Tim, what do you think a consumer would have to? What do you think people will look at this phone and say, "Oh, I'll get the Intel version. I'll get the I."
I think it's going to be some combination of battery life and performance. If there is a significant increase in battery life over the RAZR M, then perhaps that'll be an option. But like you just said, there's already the Max HD, which gives you they're pledging 21 hours of battery life on that guy. We haven't seen that yet. So if indeed this can manage 20 hours of battery life and do so in a slimmer form factor, perhaps that's enough. But really, I've had the opportunity to give the RAZR M to a lot of people, and they seem to like the form factor. You know, it's a thin phone, it's small, it's comfortable in your hand, and it looks pretty nice. So I think a lot of it will just basically come down to really which one is available in your region. I don't know that we'll necessarily be getting the RAZR I here in the U.S., whereas the RAZR M in the U.S. is at least a Verizon exclusive phone. So I think that's going to be part of it too, carrier availability. Excuse me.
Yeah. Coming in October to the UK, France, Germany, Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico. And The Verge reports the UK prices, as we mentioned in the news fuse, £340 SIM-free. We're still waiting for an actual definitive price from Motorola on it. Let's talk about the new Twitter. Yeah. Everybody's all excited about the new version of Twitter.
Excited is a good word for it,
at least the people on the Today Show we're very excited about it.
It's getting a reaction. Yeah, Twitter showed off its new look on the Today Show, and NBC did a great job explaining what exactly Twitter was, as if you had never heard of it before.
Well, that's fair.
It was epic, though, if you wanted to get a good laugh out of it. They spent a whole lot of time showing off what Twitter was, and then Dick Costello shows up, and for like 2 seconds explains what changes has happened. If you're looking right now at the video, the new Twitter on the web has this large header image that you can define.
In the profile section.
In the profile section. So on the right side, you have a large image. You have your avatar nested in the middle with your bio and information right below it. It also pushes the photo stream on the left pane higher up than where it normally is. So things have changed a little bit for Twitter on the web. The big change is the Twitter iPad app. Costello says that they designed it to look through videos and photos easier, and it kind of matches the mobile one pretty much completely. So if we go to my iPad, I can show you exactly how this looks on the on the iPad. So this is the new Twitter app. The left pane is different now. We have just 4 options. The DMs are gone. This is something that I'm a little bit annoyed with. It's under the Me tab, and then you can click. I don't know if you can see that right there, but there's a little envelope for that, the home button, and you can see it's almost exactly like the website. I'm going to show you the mobile website. Here's the mobile website, and here is the application. They're effectively exactly the same. So the big thing for this, for the mobile app, is that you're going to have a lot more. It's all going to be in this single pane. So it used to be that the Twitter app had a lot of right panes that come over to the right side. So you'd have a lot more context, and you could see, you could pinch and zoom images if I could get that to work. But there's no right pane that slides over anymore. Everything just expands inline.
If you look at a tweet that's clearly a reply to someone else, you can click that tweet and then you get the expanded conversation, which is nice. I mean, that's something that
may be better in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's all inline, which is designed to probably simplify things. But it does have some functionality that reminds me a little bit of Tweetbot. Works differently, but you get some of those functionalities there. I think it makes sense for Twitter to try to make the experience as similar on a mobile version of the web, on an iPad app, on the iPhone app, and the web itself. I mean, the iPad app was always, I never had a big problem with it, although I still prefer Tweetbot on the iPad, but it was always the app that clearly looked nothing like anything else that Twitter was doing, which seemed a little bit odd, especially since they revamped their iPhone app recently. So it makes sense for them just as far as consistency's sake, but I hate the burying the DMs. I mean, that is so stupid.
That's annoyed me on the web for a long time, and now I can be annoyed on the iPad app as well.
Great, yeah, consistency.
Yeah, it's great. and the Android app, I've got the Nexus 7 here. My Nexus 7 got an upgrade today. Not as drastic of a change, I don't think, but you can see it's that same design motif. Difference is when you go, and maybe it's because it's a 7-inch screen, but when you go on the side, everything goes along the top instead of staying along the left as it does in the 10-inch iPad. So that's, but it's basically they're trying to have one consistent design metaphor across platforms, which I like the idea of. I want to not have to think when I go from one space to another. Tim, what do you think?
It sounds a lot like what Facebook was trying to do. I don't know if you guys caught Zuckerberg's speech at TechCrunch Disrupt last week, but he basically talked about how they basically tried to push their apps down this HTML5 pipeline where effectively all the apps would be the same thing, just kind of dumb wrappers around HTML5 content. And they decided that was a horrible way to go. And after 2 years of effort, they ripped all that out and wrote custom apps for different platforms in about 4 months. And they've been very happy since then. It sounds like that's the approach that Twitter's taking here, with basically the app just kind of being a wrapper for the web page. And I don't know that that's necessarily the way that users want it. I mean, if I'm downloading an app, then I want something that's really taking advantage of the platform that I've installed that app onto. I don't want just a wrapper around the web page. I've already got a web browser that does that perfectly well.
I completely agree with Tim on this one. Now, when I was playing around with the application, I was like, wow, this is such a step back. The old Twitter application for iPad actually had a lot more information. You had a lot more panes. You could see more data at once. And if you're just going to get basically the web experience in an application, no reason for it to be on your actual device. On top of that, it just seems like it removed functionality, and it's wasting a ton of space. Like, this looks like a big iPhone app. This does not look like a 2-pane iPad application. If I have
well, it's not a 2-pane iPad application.
Not at all.
On purpose.
The old one was.
The old one had a lot of black wasted space. This has more gray and white wasted space.
That's one way to put it. But even when you go to web pages, it goes full screen instead of it bothering to go into that other pane. I just think it just seems like it's an iPhone app that blew up, and I do not like this kind of waste of space.
I still want to eat that sandwich.
Now, when you go to someone's profile page, now that the profile page has sort of been revamped and it's supposed to look nicer, I feel like, are we about to get a cover photo on Twitter the way that you've got cover photos on Facebook and on Path and a variety of other services? Because that's way too much black wasted space and a center-aligned bio. For, as nice as it looks, I don't feel like it makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, especially, okay, here, go back to the Nexus 7. And you've got this huge space up at the top.
Yeah, what's going on there?
And then when you tilt side, on Android. You just
Oh, I love it.
You just get this black. They got to do something to fill in all this empty space down here below the icon.
Yeah.
It's photocentric, so that would be where your photo would go. But the default is this like black gray thing that looks like there's something wrong with your actual device.
I get what you guys are saying about you don't want to be limited to the functionality of the web, but I still say I want to have the same functions across it. I don't want to have to think, oh, now I'm in an app, so everything works differently. And what I want is the web to be the thing eventually, right? I want HTML to do things that maybe it's not ready to do yet, and you have to make compromises. So I want them to do the same metaphor, right? I want to be able to say, okay, everything's in pretty much the same place. But I guess I see what you're saying, which is, but that shouldn't mean that you go to the lowest common denominator and limit what the app can do.
Yeah, I was thinking that the app functions should go into the web, not the other way around. Don't strip out things from the app that were more powerful and a better user interface when you're looking up DMs. The fact that it's buried, that bugs me a bit. But like now, I don't want to use this application anymore. Like I don't want to use the web version. I'm really put off by this.
I use Tweetbot on my iPhone, and I use Twitter on Android tablet and on my iPad. And I actually may stop using Twitter on the iPad now.
Well, just because now, especially if you're used to Tweetbot, they are quite different.
Yeah. I might as well not have two different meta.
It's sort of like just which one do you like better?
And I usually give these things a chance. Facebook, Windows 8, I don't like. Oh, you guys can change it, but this annoys me. This is very, very annoying.
Well, let's talk about something that's positive.
I want to change your mood.
Why don't you do that?
So I'm going to. Brewster Kahle, who's the founder of the Internet Archive, archive.org. You've probably looked up something on archive.org. Since its inception in 1996 or so. He's got a grand plan. He says that we want to collect all the books, all the music and video that has ever been produced by humans, which is a good distinction, not by elephants or orangutans, just by humans. But they're actually being very proactive. As of today, there's a search archive for all news produced in the last 3 years by 20 different channels. So this includes 1,000 different news series, more than 350,000 different actual programs devoted to the news, and they have channels like CNN, Fox News, NBC News, PBS, all local television stations that have things like investigative reporting, and even news shows like Comedy Central's The Daily Show, which some people would say, hey, isn't that just a joke show? No, Internet Archive says, no, that's news. It's just a slant on the news. Why are they doing this? Well, it says the focus is to help the American voter be able to examine candidates and issues. So there's definitely political motivation here. If you want to know exactly what Mitt Romney said about healthcare in 2009, you'd be able to find it. He also says, I understand that depending on who you look up, Fox News and CNN, for example, might have two different takes on this. So it's up to the person using the archive to look up what they want and be a little bit informed on what kind of slants they might be getting in return. Certainly, Jon Stewart type stuff would be one slant, etc. What they'll do is use closed captioning in order for you to search. So, Iyaz, you're looking for something that happened sometime in the last 3 years from 2009. You know that it certainly on a few of these channels it would have been talked about. You start getting keywords, and then the archive will start populating 30-second clips so you can kind of drum down into the clip that you're looking for. They also say if you're a researcher and you want a copy of this entire program, it's something you found it, you like it, they'll send you a DVD on loan. So it's like a library.
Wow.
Yeah, of DVDs. If for whatever reason that's going to be more helpful to you. He says that this form of closed captioning that they're using was only introduced in 2002. So they could go back 10 years. It's just going to take a while because they only have 150 people working on this. And they're using money from a variety of grants, National Archives, Library of Congress, a few other government agencies. So it's a long process. But the whole point is to eventually go back to the dawn of television.
Wow.
And beyond. It's
an archiving project, yeah.
Exactly. So it's a huge undertaking, and you're probably there's going to be someone out there who goes, well, there's a particular news station that isn't in this list, and so it's not exhaustive at all. But it is a pretty amazing undertaking, and certainly over the last 3 years, we're not even talking about, even though there's a little bit of a, hey, we're in an election year, so you really might want to be using something like this tool for, I don't know, class project or whatever. This is not just about political shows. It's everything. It's 24 hours of CNN over the last 3 years.
Everything news, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
everything news. But that's not just about election coverage. That's everything. So I
There
think
was a
this is
commercial
amazing.
service that did this for a while because I remember we were using it at CNET to find quotes. So I wonder what happened to them, if they're still out there, and what their reaction is to this. Because I thought it was interesting, the copyright exception that allows the archive project to do this.
Yeah, in fact, copying all news material, you might say, how could they do that? I
Right.
mean, NBC News would just sue them. They can't just copy all of their stuff, but it's protected under a federal copyright agreement that was signed back in 1976. Also, Internet Archive says new material isn't going to be added until 24 hours later. So it's not like you'd rush to us to get something that you could find at msnbc.com.
Right. It's really meant for historical reasons.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, you'll don't come to us first, but we're going to be a place to find something, especially since a lot of the news websites, they archive their stuff too, but not necessarily exhaustively.
Well, and they don't do it with the same purpose. They do it because they think it might be good for hits and they want to sell advertising against it, not because a historical researcher somewhere may want that particular piece of information.
Exactly.
Totally different motivation.
So yeah, it's a lofty goal, but it's an amazing project. So if you want to look up anything in the last 3 years, it's a good place to start.
I love archive.org. I love what they do. I think Brewster Kahle deserves tons of praise for not only continuing to do what he started to do, which is capture the web every day, right? Like, that is an immense project, but continuing to find other ways, finding public domain films and archiving them. Now going and archiving all the news, all of the news that's going to fit on a hard drive, and the hard drives can fit everything now. Tim, do you think this would be useful to people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's largely how The Daily Show operates. They basically search through closed captioning to find funny quotes, then they pull up clips. So for anybody to be able to do that, I think opens the door to a lot of interesting remixes of news and things like that people can do. But yeah, I'm also a huge fan of Internet Archive. I remember hearing about that back in the 90s and thinking, yeah, this is never going to last. And now here we are, 16 years later. And it's this amazing project. And I love how in those 16 years, the website hasn't changed a bit. It still looks like a 1996 website. But it's an amazing project, and I think this is awesome.
Yeah, Red Links in the chat room says he has a friend who worked for the company I was referring to. So yeah, if you could find out from your friend what they think of this, send us an email, tnt@twit.tv. Let's take a quick break. Thank our friends at Gazelle.com, the folks who want you to have some cash. They just want to give you cash for your old phone or your old MacBook or your old tablet. It's super easy, super simple. If you don't want to mess, if you're thinking, oh, I'd like to sell my old gadgets, but it's a hassle. It's not a hassle at all. Go to Gazelle.com. That's GAZELLE.com. And you don't even know how to spell. Although it's probably going to help you later on in the process. But you can just pick a picture right off the top. I got an iPad. I don't use this iPad anymore. I want to get a new phone. This is the iPad I have. This is the carrier it's tied to. Or if it's not a carrier, this is Wi-Fi. And I want to get an offer. The best part is you lock in that offer right now. Even if you're not sure what new device you want to spend your cash on, you can lock in that offer for 30 days. They'll pay for the shipping. You can print out the shipping label right away. You can have them send you a box, whatever you want to do. And then once they get it, they turn it around fast. They pay you cash via PayPal, or they'll write you a check, or you can get an Amazon gift certificate. It gives you a 5% bonus. So go do it right now. Find out what your gadget is worth. You don't even have to commit to selling it yet. Find out how much money you're going to get. You may be surprised. And then once you've locked in that offer, send them your device and you get some cash. It's super fast, super easy, but don't waste time because your gadgets are not getting more valuable over time. I mean, they will eventually, but you're going to have to wait like 30, 40 years. You don't have time for that. You need the cash now. Go to Gazelle.com, find out what your iPhone is worth, and sell your used iPhone, maybe to get the new iPhone today. Gazelle.com. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Okay, so we were talking about this just after the show yesterday. Google bought up a company probably most well known for making an app called Snapseed.
Yes, but the company is called Nik Software, and anybody who is into photography, particularly in the app world, will say they do a lot of other stuff besides Snapseed. They've got a great program called Color Effects Pro, Define. They have Mac and Windows applications as well, and that's all true. But most sources are saying, listen, this is about Snapseed. Snapseed is wildly popular, and it's also not free. It sells for $5 in the App Store. It got over 9 million users during its first year on sale. The team says they're working on an Android app, so I assume that that's probably going to be sped up, at least because the folks at Nik Software who work on Snapseed directly, which includes their entire San Diego office, are relocating to Google headquarters in Mountain View to work directly on Google+. That's according to sources. But the head of Google+, Vik Kundotra, did write in a blog post, we want to help our users create photos they absolutely love. And in our experience, Nik does this better than anybody. We don't know what Google paid for Nik Software, and we also don't know what's going to change. The variety of applications that they make, that's sort of impossible to know. But even if we just focus on Snapseed, which I love, Snapseed is one of, I think, the most robust iPad apps for photo processing I've ever seen, to the point where I think it's intimidating for a lot of people. It's a very powerful tool, but you have to invest in enough time to kind of get how it works, because it's not necessarily all that intuitive. But if Google brings Snapseed into Google Plus somehow, well, what do they have? They've got Picasa, which is, there's a variety of photo editing options that you have, but it's very consumer friendly. This is not like what I consider Google's robust power tool under the hood for people who want to upload photos to Google Plus. But if they can somehow incorporate Snapseed, because it would make no sense for them to dumb down Snapseed at all. They're buying it because it's a really great program as is. If they can somehow incorporate that into, okay, we've got Picasso, and then we've got like Picasa Pro, where if you really want to get crazy, we've got this too.
Procasa.
Procasa, very good. Hadn't thought of that. Then all of a sudden, Google Plus becomes a place to spend a lot of time editing photos. So it's not just about photo dumps, but it's about finessing your photos.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think knowing that they do more than Snapseed is important to figure out what Google might do with them, because to me, Google Plus is your dead simple Facebook competitor. It's not an Instagram competitor. Google Plus is about like, hey, I took a photo, I put it up and share it, done. Really fast, really simple.
Yeah.
And you're right. Picasa is more of a like, hey, want to do some quick and dirty, like, you know, take some red eye out, or maybe do a little cropping. Or,
right.
You know, you want to touch some things up. That should, to my mind, be more of an Instagram competitor. Whereas Snapseed and Nik Software is about like, hey, you want to do some really cool stuff and not spend $500 to $1,000 on Photoshop.
That's right.
Use us. We're gonna give you some great tools in an app for $5, and I think what you're saying makes sense.
Yeah, Nik Software is not in the social network game at all. In fact, if you play around with a photo in Snapseed and you're really happy with it and you want to get it out of Snapseed, you can currently post to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Flickr, and so on. Of course, email it or SMS it as well. I doubt that will all remain in the app once it's under, you know, the Google banner, the Google Plus banner. But it's not a social network. This is creating better photos to send to social networks, and you know, whatever social network you choose is up to you. So yeah, it's really not at all about something like the Facebook Instagram deal. But I guess that's just sort of an easy headline because we're talking about photos in both cases. But really, it's about Google acquiring a team that makes tools that Google doesn't have.
Yeah.
With Google's redesign of Google Plus for iPad and the web in general, like it's so photocentric already. When you're just flicking through it, you can see photos big and large. So the thing is, when it comes to differentiating what makes your application slightly different, the fact that Nik was able to do this in an application, as already an app, not a desktop application, is going to be ported over, because I believe Google bought Picnic a while ago. They integrated some of those features into Picasa, but it didn't exactly go into the app world. It went into this desktop universe. So if they can integrate some of those functions into the application itself, Google Plus, the application, people might find it more attractive to try that out, because messing with photos like with your hands, there's something different about that other than going through sliders. But the pinch and zoom features that I saw with what is it called, Snapseed? Mm-hmm. With Snapseed, just to pop colors to make your photos look different is a feature that I think that Google will likely put into Google Plus, the application. But I couldn't see Snapseed continue to exist. Like, it's going to probably just be swallowed whole.
Well, that's disappointing. Nobody delete your app. Your standalone app. It's really good. We don't know that's true, but yeah, I mean, that's a fear, certainly, of people who use the app regularly.
Tim, you have any thoughts on this before we move on?
I definitely agree. I think this really has nothing to do with Instagram. If anything, I think it's Google keeping up with Apple and iPhoto. iPhoto on the iPad now is very powerful and very intuitive and a really great app, whereas there's really nothing like that on any of the Android tablets, nothing first party anyway. So I would imagine that Google's going to basically spin this into a first party app that would become part of Android or become part of the standard installation of apps that you get on Android. That'll give you the same kind of power and the sort of functionality that we already see in Snapseed. I think this is a great purchase for them, and I do hope that they maintain this as being an app that's available on multiple platforms. And Google seems to be pretty good about that, so I wouldn't, I wouldn't freak out too much, but definitely don't uninstall that app just in case.
Let's finish up with a couple stories about Microsoft and its pricing and its effects on pricing, starting with the Office 2013 prices that got unveiled today. Just to give you those prices again. For $100 a year, you get Office 365 Home Premium, which gives you Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote, Outlook, Publisher, and Access. 20 gigabytes of SkyDrive space, 60 minutes of Skype for up to 5 users across 5 devices. So pretty generous. And then for $50 more a year, $150 a year, Small Business Premium adds link and info path to the apps you get. Gives you a 25 gigabyte mailbox, shared calendaring, 10 gigabytes storage across your business, but then 500 megabytes storage per user, and then you're licensed per user, but each user gets 5 machines. So these are different plans for different reasons. If you're a small business, you want to go with one. If you're a home user, you want to go with the other. Now compare that to Office Home and Student, which is the traditional offering. $140, you get Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote. That's it. You don't get anything else. You get to put it on one device. And all you're going to get are security and bug fixes. You're not going to get any additions, whereas the subscription versions will get features added to it. There's also Office Home and Business, which adds Outlook to the basic apps for $220, and Office Professional, which gives you Publisher and Access for $400. I think Microsoft's definitely making a case that they should push you, that they want you to go into subscriptions because you're getting a lot more value for your money. However, if you look at it as somebody who says, look, I don't buy Office every time the new Office comes out. So if I buy Microsoft Office, I'm going to use it for 6 years. That's $600 at the cheapest subscription price versus even $400 if you buy Office Professional, which you might not even need. You might just need the $220 or the $140 one.
The other crazy thing is the student pricing. If you've ever been to a university in the past 5 years, they can give you Office for like $20. Like, you can buy it outright because it's a student edition. It doesn't have necessarily all the same features, and it does have some limitations. But at $140 for a student, that's a little crazy. I mean, because you have to pay that every year. But it definitely shows Microsoft's.
Well, no, you don't have to pay $140 a year. That's $140 once for your student edition.
Excuse me. Yeah. And it's $100 per year.
It's $100 a year for the Home Premium subscription version. So
it's definitely Microsoft showing that. Thank you for that correction. It's definitely Microsoft showing that they know that selling products once is not enough. I mean, you have to be in services at this point because there are all these web services when it comes to Google Docs, all these free competitors out there. That if Microsoft wants to push something with these bundles, they're including more cloud storage. I'd assume
more apps.
I'd assume that you get the latest version when it changes. That's the other thing. Like
I don't know how they're going to handle that. That's another 3 years down the road, but yeah, possibly you could just get to keep subscribing, right?
Yeah, and I believe there's also the Skype bundle in there, a little extra 60 minutes. So like, it's an interesting way to. I think the price is a little high. I think it's an interesting way for Microsoft to create a revenue stream, but the pricing for the general public seems a little high. Well,
they're giving you more for your money, but you're likely to spend more over a normal period. Tim, what do you think of these offerings?
I think it's kind of fascinating how they're throwing in Skype with this and online SkyDrive storage as well. It's almost like they're just kind of shoveling offers at you in the hope that something in there catches your eye. I think they needed to go to something like this to try to capitalize on companies are switching over to Google Docs and things like that. And me personally, I don't really see myself buying any of these editions or paying $100 a year for them. I'm pretty happy with Google Docs at this point for my limited office type needs. But ultimately, I think this is something that Microsoft needed to do. And I hope for them that it's successful, because this is a big cash cow for them. And it's a drastic change in pricing model for them. But I'm eager to see how it pays off for them about 12 months from now.
I like you. I mean, I am on Microsoft Office. I think it's 2008 was the last Mac version before 2011. I did not upgrade to the latest one. I don't have Office on my Windows machine at home. I use LibreOffice and Google Docs. I mean, Sarah, do you think who needs Microsoft Office? Who needs to spend this money now?
Well, people who are used to it. People who are used to Microsoft Office, and that's just what you want. I can see them. I can definitely see them making some money, making some sales. For me, $100 a year is that's just totally unnecessary. But then again, I kind of bitch and moan about Google Docs half the time too. So there are certain things that I think Microsoft is probably going to do better. And if for whatever reason someone feels like they just can't get a suite of products any other way, you know, there are no open source options, LibreOffice doesn't work for them or whatever. I mean, it depends on what you're doing. I know that $100 a year there are a lot of things that are more expensive than that, but I think that's a pretty big subscription.
And I think the enterprise is still going to buy this. We're not talking about big business.
Yeah, I'm talking about individuals.
We're talking about small, home use.
It also sounds like a marketing issue. You say $100 a year, or you say like a little bit over $8 a month. $8 a month for Office, the latest one, all the time. Doesn't sound so bad anymore. I'm paying for that for Netflix every year. I don't think of it as $100 a year. I think about $8 a month. If they just say it's $8.30 or whatever it's going to be, it just could be a small shift, but that could be different.
And don't forget that there is an online component to Microsoft Office now, and they have very good sharing to compete with Google Docs. So I think if you're already brought into this by your workplace, you're going to want to stay in it. Although one thing that I believe it was Ars Technica pointed out, or maybe it was Engadget, I can't remember, you actually can spend $10 as an enterprise to give a home license to your employees. So if you have a site license for your enterprise, you just throw in an extra $10, even if you make the employee pay for it. I mean, that's nothing compared to what they would pay on their own. So Microsoft is smart in kind of throwing that option out there to keep the folks who are using it at work using it at home. But I'm less and less seeing the compelling reason to spend this much money, especially on a subscription version, to use this at home when LibreOffice is compatible with most of the formats. It doesn't do everything. It's not perfect. And again, if you're using Excel in the workplace, you're probably not going to be happy using it. But if you just need something for home and you don't use it anywhere else, it's perfectly adequate.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft's going to probably pull that as also marketing. Like, look, those other things are nice and they kind of do what we do, but nothing does Microsoft Office like Microsoft Office.
Right.
Because trying to keep up with those features and seeing something broken in Word, you're like, oh, the formatting is wrong because you're using Pages. It's like, well, there's this element of consistency. You don't want to have people freaking out all the time when it's like, what do you mean it doesn't work in this version? It doesn't work on this one. Why don't we just have the real Office already so it works? Because we've seen what Google Spreadsheets just messes up so often.
Yeah.
That sometimes it's worth going and paying
you
some
have
money.
compatibility issues with certain file types. I think it's like people who just get fed up with that just go, I don't care. $100, fine. Let's just make this easier on ourselves.
All right, let's finish up with the effect of Microsoft's pricing on selling Asus Windows 8 tablets.
Yeah, Asus showed off a leaked image of its holiday lineup. It's got the Vivo Tab RT, so these are the Windows 8 tablets. 10.1-inch tablet starts at $600. The dock, which is a keyboard dock with extra battery, costs an extra $200. The Vivo Tab, which is the x86 version, 11.6-inch tablet, $800. The dock still costs $200. The Tai Chi, this is that really cool dual display laptop. When you have it closed, it has a multi-touch display on the back. When you open it up, it has a display where you expected. $1,300. The thing is, these prices seem pretty high, especially because apparently Steve Ballmer was talking to Seattle Times on Friday, and apparently people missed this, gave a ballpark pricing for Microsoft's own Surface tablets between $300 and $800.
Well, basically, they said it's going to be the same prices as the iPads. And so that's what the headlines were essentially. $800 is the base price for the Asus, and that's the top price that Ballmer said, right?
That's right. So that would seem to imply that the Surface for x86, or whatever they call it, Surface Pro, that would have an $800 price tag because that's the highest end version, and the RTU line could start as low as $300. Tim, do you think people are going to even look at the Asus line if Bomber's prices, if those numbers are real? $300 to $800 seems like a huge difference, especially since Microsoft hardware looks pretty good.
No, I don't think there's any chance that a lot of these OEMs are going to be successful at the end of this year. There are going to be a lot of Windows 8 and Windows RT devices that are going to be lacking success, which is unfortunate. Microsoft, I'm sure, has been working very hard over the past 12 or 24 months to get these OEMs lined up and to get them on board for the launch of Windows RT and Windows 8. And I think they're going to all be undercut by Microsoft, which is going to make it a very difficult proposition for them to be successful. But Microsoft needs to be pricing these tablets very inexpensively. If they're priced on parity with the iPad, I think a lot of people are just going to buy an iPad, despite the fact that the Surface tablets offer a lot more productivity than the Apple offerings.
Yeah, that's why I think something like the TWiT might have an actual chance. If you're just showing a tablet that you rip off the screen and it's a tablet and I can put it with a keyboard dock, well, the Surface already has that done. So what are you going to do that's going to be a different product category? And the TWiT has that, again, that bizarre dual screen device so that you can actually have people interact with the back screen while you're interacting with the front one. So you can have two users at once using that machine, which I think is a really different way to use a computer, because I'm often going, hey, can you see this on my screen? And turning my laptop.
It's cool, but is it $1,300 cool?
I don't know if it's $1,300 cool, but I mean, I hope it's the first generation of it,
Yeah.
But it's a risk because you have to differentiate yourself because Microsoft might have them beat, and that seems really scary for these OEMs.
All right, let's move on to the randomizer.
Randomizer.
Article on fastcodesign.com says that the first ever documentary shot with Google glasses has been released. They actually have Diane von Furstenberg during her first hectic Sunday at New York Fashion Week wearing the glasses. And then they went and they edited all the footage that was recorded while she was walking around wearing the glasses and recording what was going on and turned it into a high-end design Gucci Prada sort of documentary. And no one cares.
No, the thing when I saw this video,
I was just admiring the shoes. Sorry.
When I saw
distracted easily.
I was super afraid of in this kind of sickening feeling because I don't know how steady somebody's head is. Because I don't think there's any optical image stabilization on the Google glasses, right? So I wanted to know, how is this going to feel when we're looking at it? You're seeing, a model walk through a runway.
And it feels like motion sickness to me.
Yeah, it's fine on a web page when you're looking at it, as a part of a screen, but it's not something I think you want to see on a large screen because it's going to feel sick. But it's a really cool experiment because if you're looking at documentaries, you want to get engulfed in it, and the fact that you can have a first-person experience in a way you couldn't before, because you actually see that there's something about the two hands. You can actually see somebody interacting with their world. I really like the way that looks. I don't think we're gonna see a whole lot of these though.
Yeah, we have to figure out a way to make Google goggles shoot video like it's on it, a tracking shot, like some Scorsese type version of the runway show, so that it's actually fun to. This is fun for me to watch for like a second, but I don't want to watch the whole thing because I'm actually kind of makes my eyes hurt.
Well, but when you step back for a minute and realize that this is a beta piece, this is not even a beta, it's an alpha piece of hardware that is doing things that nobody else has really been able to perfect, and they just kind of threw it out there in the middle of Fashion Week and then came up with something watchable. Yeah, you're right. It's not perfect. There's image stabilization issues, and the fidelity of the video is a little bit low quality. It looks like your old flip cam sort of quality of video, but it's pretty impressive that it works this well this early on. I mean, this is something they weren't letting journalists even touch a few months ago.
And there's some pretty almost shocking moments when you're watching the video where the person goes and looks into a mirror. You're like, are you realizing that they're just wearing this one piece, instead of there's being this giant camera with a light on it or anything like that? It's like, oh yeah, we are seeing this from this person's point of view. There she is in the mirror. It just seems a little bit like, oh yeah, this is not. You're not just. There's not a crew following you. It's actually this person.
I don't know. Justin TV did this a while ago.
Yeah, but you don't need a backpack.
It's been done.
Tim, is this impressive?
I know.
It does impress me. It's fascinating. I can't wait to see a well, I think there's going to be zillions and zillions of these things coming out in about 2 years as everybody is documenting their day-to-day lives. For more stability, I think all that you need to do is put these on the head of a chicken, and then at that point you'll have the ultimate organic Steadicam experience.
See, I was thinking, yeah, if this was on Boo, you'd love it. That's why.
But I want to see Boo, so we had to be looking
Boo
in
and
the
his
mirror the
buddies.
whole time.
There you go.
Just
See?
with his glasses. Little Boo.
Now that Sarah's cheered up, let's check the calendar.
I'm in a great mood now. Amazon Cloud Player has launched in the UK, France, and Germany. So get started if you haven't already. LG has announced their Optimus G, which is running Qualcomm's 1.5 gigahertz Snapdragon Pro quad core processor, shipping in Korea next week. Unsubsidized pricing will be equivalent of about $895 US, 13 megapixel camera. Great phone, but. And Tim, maybe you know, maybe Engadget has heard that they haven't canceled their event tomorrow, which was a joint announcement with Qualcomm. So maybe they're announcing something else. Are they announcing it again?
It's likely that we'll see U.S. availability tomorrow, but I can't say for sure what exactly we're going to see in the morning. What I can say, though, is that our senior mobile editor, Miriam Jor, was in Korea to touch this device, and she said that she's madly in love with it.
Ooh.
Wow, nice.
All right. Love affair. All right. HTC also has an event tomorrow in New York City, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, probably Windows Phone 8 devices. And iOS 6 is available tomorrow as well. If you forgot about that, now you know.
Let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
Got a couple emails to get to. Sarah, you want to kick us off with the first one?
Sure. Eric Howard wrote in, I just finished watching Friday's episode, and I want to give my 2 cents for the OS choice for HP if they do pull a trigger on a phone. I think they almost have to go with Windows Phone 8. Not that I think WebOS or Android aren't good OSs, but Windows Phone 8 could fit in line with their whole ecosystem attempt with WebOS during its launch. If you remember, they touted the benefits of owning both a Palm Pre and a touchpad for direct communications. And what better way to do that than with an HP Windows Phone 8 device and some HP-centric system, especially when we already know they're building several Windows 8 PCs and laptops, which will more than likely already talk to Windows Phone 8 devices. So why reinvent the wheel when it's already there later this year with a legit Windows Phone OS? Just my 2 cents. Love the show.
That does make sense. And HP having so much market share with computers, it might be a really good thing for Microsoft to, give a little love to HP as well.
Yeah, agreed.
Email from Justin talking about paid likes. While a paid like seems nefarious because there's no info about it, I've seen tweets with a little hashtag ad, and my wife reviews items on her blog with full disclosure. I think if that disclosure is there, it should be fine. My problem is when, disclosure or not, the reviewer speaks so glowingly it is obvious they want to continue getting free stuff to review. A few times my wife has contacted a rep and asked if they really wanted her to review the item, because it wasn't going to be positive at all. If only everyone was just honest and not out for their own gain.
Yeah, but see, then if I'm looking at her, Tim, you could speak to this running a review site. If you're a review site that says, well, I'm not going to publish because it's negative, and I don't, then that review site isn't giving you full coverage.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're hearing more and more from companies that are kind of subtly trying to get us to, pledge a positive review in exchange for early access to a device. It's becoming almost an endemic across the industry, which is kind of disgusting to see. But, absolutely, we, don't do any paid content or anything like that. It's kind of nauseating to see how some of these blogs are getting a little bit shady in terms of their operations. And
legally, that's fine. If they disclose that they're being paid, that's great. But I don't think you're going to have as useful of a site if you take payment for reviews, even if you're honest about it, because it means you're not going to put. A lot of times, companies are going to say, "Yeah, you're right. We don't want you to put that negative review up," and then that's one less negative review out there. I mean, the problem with reviews as it is, the reviews that aren't paid for, is they tend to hover around 7 out of 10, no matter what that rating scale is, right? When I was at CNET, we were banging our heads against the wall, like we know this is a problem. How do we get out of that?
Just one of the many reasons that we killed review scores.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, Tim, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to everybody in our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com, for submitting stories there. And Tim, thank you for being on. It's always great to have you. Let folks know, is there anything coming up specifically on Engadget you want to let them know about?
Well, we've got the HTC events happening tomorrow. We'll be doing a live blog from New York City. And then I personally am going to be heading off to the Paris Auto Show next week, so look for some interesting coverage of EVs from there. And then in a couple of weeks, we've got CTEC coming up as well, which is going to be a big show out of Tokyo.
Check it out, Engadget.com, Engadget.com. Thanks to Tim. Thanks for everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody there for the hard work they do. I love Engadget. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. We love you guys too.
We'll be back tomorrow. Twit.tv/TNT is the place to find us on the web. You can email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv, or you can give us a call, 260-TNT-SHOW. Russ Pitts from Polygon joins us then. We'll see you tomorrow.
My chair is now squeaking when I dance.